Shubhanshu Shukla, all set to return to Earth. Joining me on the broadcast is my colleague Akshita Nandgopal as we take our viewers through the latest of what particular stage this mission stands at. Akshita, let's quickly flash those details also on our screens of Shubhanshu Shukla beginning the re-entry process. Dragon capsule's deorbit burn that is complete, and next we understand, Akshita, that the Dragon capsule will re-enter the orbit, and that will happen in less than 30 minutes. That Shubhanshu Shukla will splash down. Explain this particular stage.
So what's happening right now, Suesha, if I were to break it down for our viewers, is that currently you've had the deorbit burn happen. What does that do? It kind of slows down the capsule so it's not, ramming into the Earth's surface, into the ocean in full speed. Next, now what is happening in the next few minutes, we should get that confirmation, is the nose cone of the Dragon capsule will be closed. Why is this done? It's not really a technical aspect, but essentially to ensure that SpaceX can reuse that particular head of the capsule. You know that SpaceX is all about reusing their equipment, so that's why the nose cone is being closed. That's the only reason it's being done. It doesn't really aid in the splashdown per se. But next, the most exciting bit is you can officially say the Group Captain Shukla and the rest of the crew is back home, back on planet Earth, because essentially now we will see the re-entry into the orbit that's expected in the next few minutes. Once that happens, it means officially they're back on planet Earth, and then in the next 25 minutes, as we're showing on our screens, at exactly 3 p.m. is when the splashdown will occur. I'm not sure if you remember, Suesha, but there were those pictures when Sunita Williams had returned of the parachutes being deployed and then that capsule just perfectly landing in the middle of the ocean. That's exactly what you're going to see right now with that picture-perfect splashdown. But we are expecting that because, it's literally about middle of the night in the area where it's landing in America off the Pacific Ocean. It will be dark, so we're still keeping our fingers crossed that we'll be able to witness that amazing moment of the splashdown. But let's just dip in, Suesha, to what's also happening right now. You can see that the Axiom Group and SpaceX, they're currently discussing in their live stream also the latest updates. So we're getting that communication of what's happening between Dragon capsule and Houston, which is coordinating the splashdown. Let's listen into that.
Great call out there.
Okay, we're just going to wait for that audio because we have to keep dipping in and dipping out. We're very excited. You can make out in the frame that we've made here in our studios, we've virtually transported ourselves to space, Suesha, because we can't be where Group Captain Shukla is. So we made up for it by being here and creating a virtual set where it looks like we're at least on board the International Space Station. We'll have to make do with that. But 24 minutes away from Shuk's coming home. At 3 p.m. is when the landing will happen, the splashdown. Let's cut across live now.
SpaceX's second crew mission to splash down in one of the new locations. Prom 2 was the first in April earlier this year. The new splashdown locations are near Los Angeles, Oceanside, and San Diego. And spreading the supported sites across multiple locations helps maximize the return opportunities for this mission and future crews, lowering the chance that we'll have to wave off due to bad weather. So our fully equipped recovery vessel Shannon is stationed in Long Beach, California, and is currently standing by to support splashdown today.
That's right, and like you said earlier, we'll be expecting to have that splashdown right off the coast of San Diego, as you can see on your graphic there. So we take into account many different variables, including what landing sites have favorable weather, and SpaceX teams have selected the primary landing site, as we just mentioned, as San Diego. Now, there are a number of weather-related items that play into splashdown and recovery operations. Some of the more obvious factors that impact operations are rain, or chance of lightning in the recovery zone, both for the safety of the crew inside, obviously, but also for the recovery teams, as we've discussed, on the water. So we're looking for wind speeds that are less than 15 feet per second, or about 10 miles per hour, and relatively calm seas so that we can safely execute recovery operations. And these recovery operations include a lot, right? It's landing a helicopter on the recovery ship to fly our crew back to shore, but it's also pulling the Dragon spacecraft into Shannon, the recovery vehicle.
Yeah, and as we've been mentioning, there are a number of variables and criteria that come into play, and they all help ensure safety of both the crew and the recovery teams. But weather conditions today are looking great in Southern California near San Diego, and for these operations, SpaceX closely coordinates with the United States Coast Guard to establish a safety zone to ensure public safety and for the safety of those involved in the recovery operations, as well as the crew on board the returning spacecraft. spacecraft. Now, multiple notices are issued to the mariners in advance, and during recovery operations, and Coast Guard patrol boats are deployed to discourage boaters from entering the splashdown zones.
And that's right. Like, we really want to stress to the public the need to respect this safety zone. Recovering a spacecraft from the water is a hazardous operation, as you can imagine. And any other boats interfering in the area not only increases the risk to the astronauts in the spacecraft, as well as the teams working to recover them from the water, but also to those themselves who would be going out to see it. So for the safety of the crew, as well as your own safety, we recommend you sit back from home, watch and follow along the action from your TV, as the teams who have trained
Dragon,
extensively do
SpaceX
this.
For final entry briefing, report when ready to copy.
Dragon's ready to copy.
Dragon,
You
I
just
have no
heard.
deltas to the previously briefed times. The vehicle is healthy, weather is still looking good, and recovery forces are on site. Predicted comm blackout starting at 0918 Zulu and ending at 0925 Zulu. How copy?
No deltas to the timeline. Everything's healthy and weather looks good. 0918 to 0925 for the comm blackout.
That's a good readback, Dragon. And with that, I'll be looking for you to verify that tablets are secure, visors are down, and restraints are tightened no later than 150 kilometers.
Dragon copy. Welcome.
And we just had some great comms between the core and the crew. It sounds like
There is essentially the communication between Peggy Whitson, the commander of the mission who's on board the Dragon capsule, and Houston. And what's been confirmed there is all systems are go. The weather is perfect. The tide is perfect. The area has been cleared off. They say recovery boats are on site. But also the communication coming in that there'll be a comms blackout. What that means is essentially when re-entry happens, there's a complete blackout of communication. So there'll be no way that Houston will be able to speak with those on board the Dragon capsule for a few moments. And that is essentially a given. It's understood that during the re-entry phase, that communication will not be possible. So there will be a blackout. It's planned, which is why the communication was also given to the mission commander, Peggy Whitson, who's done this several times. She's a veteran of sorts, has done many, many space missions, so she knows exactly how it goes down. But that is the communication that you just heard there, that the comms blackout will happen, as they said, at 9:30. So essentially expect that in the next few minutes you're going to see the re-entry happening. That's the most challenging part, Suesha, for the crew on board, for Group Captain Shukla and all of the others, because it's going to be literally dropping down. So they'll be feeling a whole amount of emotions, a lot of movement, which is why there was also a check from Houston about whether all of the crew is strapped in perfectly. It's a very small capsule, very little space, but these astronauts are trained exactly for this. Any of us seated there will perhaps pass out, will become unconscious because of the sheer speed with which you're dropping. These are trained astronauts, including Group Captain Shukla. This is the most challenging part that we're going to witness now. Of it re-entering orbit, like I said, it's pitch dark there, so unfortunately you're not going to get the best view per se. But the good news is that the communication is coming from Houston that everything is clear to go. The weather's perfect, tide is low, so you're going to see a very smooth landing. The splashdown as planned, Suesha. That is the update we can give our viewers. 18 minutes to go.
Akshita, also a lot of viewers want to know what happens after that, because they will go through a rehabilitation program, if I'm not mistaken. That will be for 7 days, and also for them to accustom themselves to Earth's gravity again is going to be a task.
It's very, very difficult. What you're going to see, and it'll be something, difficult really to imagine and visualize, because we're seeing Group Captain Shukla floating around, and as you see those images on your screens, taking part in all of those training schedules. He is essentially the pilot, right? So we're used to seeing a certain image of him. What you're going to see post splashdown is completely different because once the splashdown occurs, it's going to take about 30 minutes to secure the entire capsule to ensure everything is safe, and only then will you see the capsule being opened. Once it's opened, the crew will be brought out, and how will they be brought out? They'll be brought out on stretchers. They won't be able to move simply because of the difference in how they were at the International Space Station, floating around essentially to now getting used to gravity, which is why the rehabilitation program is so crucial. But even getting out of the capsule, they won't be able to stand up. They're strapped onto their seats. They will literally be carried out, put on stretchers, and then taken out. And that's because it takes time for them to get feeling in their hands and their legs. But let's cut across live once again to what's happening as you hear, in fact, a brief coming in live from Axiom and SpaceX.
And even included an underwater helicopter escape training simulation.
And SpaceX Dragon crew has tablets secured, restraints tightened, and visors down.
SpaceX copies. Crew are configured for entry. 5 minutes until predicted comm blackout. We'll see you on the other side at 0925 Zulu.
Copy 09250 on the other side of the blackout.
Okay, and good comms there from crew that they are ready and configured for their return time. And, an aspect of that is to wrap up our discussion about training. That's a major training point for crew, understanding how their return phase is going to look so that they know, let's go ahead and call ground and let them know that we're ready for maintaining it. So training really is at the heart of any successful mission. You plan, you train, you fly in that order.
Yeah, exactly. Training prepares every astronaut, even those very experienced like Peggy Whitson, and she also did retraining with the AX4 crew. It's important for the crew to train together. But this prepares them for any phase, any potential scenario in their mission.
Exactly right. And missions like this are important milestones for everyone involved, from the crew members who fly to those that they represent, to the host of scientists and engineers around the world who have an opportunity for their research or their technology to be tested in microgravity. Everyone learns from these missions. And for Axiom Space, this is at the heart of why we do these missions. We're building opportunities for others to advance what is possible and expand what is known. And we want to enable every human everywhere to take part in this. Now, after a beautiful launch on June 25th, the AX4 crew docked with the International Space Station a little over a day later, opening the hatch and greeting the Expedition 73 crew on June 26th. The crew shared some good words in a welcoming ceremony and an astronaut pinning that we don't have there, but did happen, before quickly getting to work on their extensive itinerary. Each crew member brought with them a host of research, technology demonstrations, and outreach objectives, ranging from human physiology to space radiation impact studies, and even some gardening while they were up there. So this crew maintained a very full timeline, but they prepared for this, part of their training. Each crew member wanted to ensure that every minute of this mission was utilized and that all of their objectives were hit. So Peggy, Shukes, Suave, and Tibor were ready to work with their time on board. Over the course of 18 days on board the station, they accomplished over 60 research activities, as well as more than 20 outreach events. But as their time on station came to a close, the AX4 crew participated in a brief farewell ceremony where they said their goodbyes to the Expedition 73 crew. And now for more details on the incredible work performed by this crew on orbit, check out axiomspace.com to see more.
Yeah, I love that this crew did so much outreach. 20 events in 18 days is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's
so
pretty
very
impressive.
impressed. Plus the 60 experiments on top of that. So
I mean, and as we discussed earlier, it was a huge priority for them to be able to conduct those outreach events for the people of their countries who may not have had a chance to talk to an astronaut, to understand why are we going to space. Now they have a better understanding of that. And like you mentioned earlier, it's get them started young. Let them understand the passion of it. I know that my nieces, my nephew, right, they're excited about space. Yeah. They want to be involved in space too. So I can only imagine getting a call from Tibor, getting a call from Suave, and understanding, what are we doing up there?
Oh, that would be so awesome.
Yeah.
Now, we are expecting that blackout period coming up here in just about a couple of minutes. Now, this blackout period, this is when the Dragon spacecraft re-enters back into the Earth's atmosphere. What's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of plasma buildup as it's getting more through the atmosphere. And that plasma is getting to about 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit, building up around the spacecraft. So we will be losing comms. This is expected. Today we're expecting it to last about 6 to 7 minutes, and then we'll regain comms. And you'll probably hear the core after the expected blackout period time has ended. Make some comms, some calls to the crew until they regain the comms and get confirmation from the crew that they can communicate with each other.
That's exactly right. You bring up a good point. An expected loss of comm, or sometimes you'll hear loss of signal, or LOS. It's an expected part of spaceflight. It is planned for. They are predictable, and mission operators or flight controllers work through that to understand when are we going to be able to have and maintain communications with the vehicle, communications with crew, and that can happen at any time during the space flight. So for this 5 minutes, right, based on the physics you discussed of the vehicle heating up, you know it's going to happen, and ground crews can predict for that and work around it. But it's a good reminder that we're waiting for those verbal cues, not just visual cues that we'll get. We've been able to see some visual cues today of crew in their suits, but also be looking for visual cues later, right? Good parachute deploy. We're also listening though for good verbal cues. So we heard a minute ago, Commander Peggy Whitson was calling down saying that crew is in a good configuration for us to go into this period of no comms.
Yeah, and we do expect that blackout period has probably begun at this point.
That's
and
right.
Speaking of visual cues, I've had the opportunity to talk to some of the astronauts that have flown on our Dragon spacecraft, and they've said it's kind of one of the most spectacular sights they've seen.
Really?
With different, they said it looks like sparks outside of the window, but with multiple different colors, multiple different looks of what that plasma heating up around the vehicle looks like. So they should be experiencing that right now. The AX-4 crew still inside of the Dragon spacecraft. Again, this blackout period will last approximately 6 to 7 minutes. And again, we won't hear any comms throughout this period until the expected blackout time is complete, and then we'll start hearing comms from the core calling out to the crew.
That's right.
As we begin the second half of entry, Dragon is now beginning to flush nitrox into the cabin and continuing to top off the AX-4 crew's suits with cool air. Again, this is what will allow the cabin temperature to remain comfortable while, as I mentioned, the external temperatures reach 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. The heat shield is pointing forward, leading the spacecraft to the landing site. Dragon's primary heat shield is comprised of Pica 3.0, which stands for Phenolic Impregnated Carbon Ablator. First generation Pica was first developed by NASA for studying and sampling comets within our solar system. SpaceX then partnered with NASA to develop Pica X, which was the second generation product used on all Dragon 1 commercial resupply missions that successfully resupplied the space station on 20 missions. Pica 3.0 was developed specifically for use on Dragon as we prepared to begin flying crew with enhanced structural and thermal properties that optimized the heat shield and drove down cost and mass. The remainder of the Crew Dragon spacecraft is composed primarily of a SpaceX proprietary ablative material. It's another class of thermal protection, which is lighter weight versus Pica and protects the underlying composite structure during re-entry to ensure the structural capabilities are maintained. Now, while Dragon will experience temperatures well over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit during peak re-entry conditions, the characteristics of the TPS, or thermal protection systems, coupled with the ECLIS, environmental control and life support system in the pressurized interior, will ensure that the AX-4 crew will stay cool and comfortable during all the phases of re-entry through splashdown with all that heat surrounding them.
Exactly right. Well, now, as AX-4 set a new benchmark for private astronaut missions with the most research activities executed aboard an Axiom space mission to the International Space Station to date. With over 60 experiments representing 31 countries, the mission showcased the growing global interest in leveraging low Earth orbit for scientific discovery. The research portfolio included 8 technology demonstrations, 12 life science investigations, and 27 research projects. And this research spanned a wide range of disciplines, from cancer biology to regenerative medicine, to even artificial intelligence, agriculture, and materials science. And this further demonstrates how low Earth orbit is a platform for innovation. Now, many of these studies were designed to address challenges both in space and on Earth, such as improving disease modeling, enhancing food security, and developing smarter autonomous systems. Now, the scale and diversity of the AX-4 research portfolio reflect a shift toward more collaborative science on orbit together, positioning commercial astronaut missions as catalysts for advancing knowledge and solving real-world problems. You know, Jesse, I think this is one of the most important things about a mission like this, is it allows us an opportunity to understand we have a number of problems that we're trying to address on Earth, and it is a unique opportunity to be able to go to low Earth orbit and understand some of the key aspects of that kind of research. And missions like AX4 really allow for those kind of problems to continue to have momentum behind them to be solved. The International Space Station has been tackling so many of these problems for over 2 decades now.
Yeah.
And that research needs to continue. It needs to keep going.
I think a lot of people don't realize that some of the stuff that we have that seem very simple and common to us here on Earth actually sometimes come from the research that happens in space.
Exactly right. Exactly right. One of the things we were talking about earlier is a major aspect of long-duration spaceflight is the radiation impacts. And I know for me personally, I thought one of the really interesting research topics or research experiments that was being conducted on orbit for AX4 was looking at what are the different materials and properties that we can use to protect against space radiation. So during the mission, we had a great call between Peggy, Suave, and Dr. Lucy Lowe with Axiom Space to discuss exactly what it is that we're trying to protect for and understand why space radiation is so difficult to wrap. So, you know, missions like AX4, they're all important. And we are now seeing great confirmations of the Dragon spacecraft making its return back to Earth right now.
And while we are in a blackout period, this is an excellent view, seeing Dragon from the ground as it's re-entering back into Earth's atmosphere. Now, that blackout period is expected to conclude at 2:25 a.m. Pacific time, so just a couple more minutes here, and then hopefully we'll get some comms back between the core and the crew. But in the meantime, at least got some cool views of the crew almost back down here on Earth.
Exactly right. And you know, making that kind of visual confirmation is such an important part of what we're tracking today. We're tracking a lot of very dynamic operations. And so being able to see what we see on the screen there is incredibly important for mission controllers.
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check.
Again, we may not hear the crew until they do get those comms back, that acquisition of signal.
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check.
SpaceX Dragon, we have you loud and clear.
Dragon, we have you the same. Expect automated chute deployment.
Dragon copies, automated chute deploy.
And great news, as you heard there, we got comms from the X4 crew.
That's exactly what we're waiting for, and I love that you can hear the excitement in Peggy's voice, too. It's like she's done this before.
Maybe a few times. A great live view on your screen inside of Dragon as they are re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. And we did hear confirmation that there will be the automatic drogue and parachute deployment coming up here shortly.
And on your screen with that great live view.
GPS converge. Expect nominal altitude for drogue chute deploy.
Copy. Nominal GPS chute deploy.
Now we're going to hear a lot of comms back and forth throughout these last 5 minutes here as the Corps will be calling out their altitude as they're making their way down, as well as when the drogue parachutes deploy and the main parachutes deploy. And then as they get closer and closer to Earth, just keeping the crew updated with how close they are before splashdown so that they can expect that splashdown.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And those are the things that crew that you're seeing there on the left side of your screen are following along with their onboard telemetry. And for you at home as well, you can see on your screens as well, things like vehicle speed, vehicle altitude. All those are really important metrics that we're trying to understand as part of the visual confirmations, the audio communications or the verbal communications that we've gotten with crew. We're also getting vehicle communications and telemetry to all understand how we're looking as we lead up to these next 4 minutes before.
And there you can see on your screen, the seats are rotating for the crew. This prepares them for that splashdown, so they do
brace for drogue window.
They do reorient the crew depending on the dynamic events that are happening. So the crew does lean back during re-entry.
Crew is braced.
And then they are sitting up a little bit more upright for those drogue and main parachutes to deploy.
That's right. Having them in that position helps distribute the forces correctly so that when they're experiencing that dynamic event, they're as comfortable as they can possibly be.
Yeah. We're now waiting for confirmation that the Dragon's chutes have deployed, coming up here just in under a minute or so. Just prior to the deployment of the initial drogue chutes, Dragon automatically safes the propulsion system. Dragon then deploys its drogue parachutes to stabilize and decelerate the vehicle. Then just before drogue deployment, seats automatically rotate to 26 degrees, which we just saw there, to keep the crew within acceptable G limits for entry and landing. And
excellent view.
great view. Drogue parachutes are deployed.